Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anu. I'm the Vice President, Growth and Strategy at Quick Launch. It is approximately 1 p.m. here in Chicago. Allow me to welcome Carl Howard from Salle University, who will co-present the webinar with the team at Quick Launch. Before we start, we would like to conduct a quick poll. You'll see a question on your screen. Please share your responses, and we'll take it from there. The question, I believe, will just pop up in a minute. And the question is, how are you currently provisioning user accounts from your SIS to Active Directory? So there's a poll that's open right now. I'll request everyone to please put in your responses. We'll wait for 60 seconds to collect the answers, and that will help us set the tone for this session. Thanks a lot for sharing the responses. This really helps us set the tone for today's session. I'll just talk about the agenda very quickly. We'll walk you through the platform. We'll give you a glimpse of our products. We'll then share with you the problem statement of the cell and how we help them deal with it. We'll walk you through our product. We'll give you a live product demo, and then we'll open the house for questions and answers. So that's the flow that we'll be following today. Now, speaking about the Quick Launch products, Quick Launch is an AI-based platform that helps you streamline your access and identity management needs. You have the product suite that we have in front of you right now. We help you streamline your SSO and
Anu, just 1 second. I think your screen's frozen.
All right, just let me check very quickly.
Yes.
All right, I hope my screen
should be visible now.
Perfect. So I was talking about the Quick Launch products. We have SSO and IDP. We have Password Manager with multi-factor, Adaptive as an add-on to our multi-factor. We have user self-registration, automated provisioning, and Shield. I'll speak about all of these products very quickly with a use case in mind. So imagine a user logs on to your website for the first time. You want this user to be able to create the password on his own. We give you that provision. We'll be sending out welcome emails to your registered students. We'll pick up the details from your Active Directory. We'll send them welcome emails, and there will be a link to create their passwords using that link. So the student comes in, creates his account, creates the password, and then he's pushed to encouraged to, I would say, to go on and set up the security questions. Now, the student is setting up the security questions, setting up the primary email address and secondary email address. And the reason why he or she is doing it is because we want the multi-factor to be activated for the student from the word go. So while we will show you how you set up all of that, from a user standpoint, all of this is automated and streamlined, wherein the user will start as a first-time user, set up the profile, and he or she will be ready to roll. Right after the student logs in for the first time, there will be a wall of icon that the student will see. That will be the SSO, the first-time experience for the SSO that the student would come across, wherein the student can just click on an icon and simply move into that application and start using it. So the wall of icon will appear right after the user logs on to the portal, and that entire set of applications will be federated from the backend to ensure a smooth user experience. Now, what we mean by Shield here is that we make sure that any logon process, logon attempt by any kind of a malicious user, maybe a hacker, maybe someone who's trying to attack using DDoS, will be automatically identified by our AI and we will make sure that these IP addresses are blacklisted. But that's what Shield does. I'm just trying to touch base upon all these products very quickly. And then Adaptive, what this does on top of multi-factor is that, say, for example, you don't want every user to be entering multiple layers of passwords. So you don't want to send a one-time token, for example, to every user, but you want to make sure that any user that seems to be a little off from the regular stream of work. So for example, a user is entering from another geography a certain day, or he's using another computer on a certain day. You want to challenge him or her to prove the identity. So for that, we have adaptive MFA, and we'll challenge the user to enter another one-time token that has been sent on the SMS or the email, and we want to make sure that the user has actually entered that one-time token, and only then he or she is being allowed to enter into the portal. So these are the products that I wanted to touch base upon. I'll just request from here on to Carl to just take ahead this session and explain us how we added value to LaSalle University and how they're making use of our products. So over to you, Carl. I hope you can hear us well.
I can hear you well, and thank you, and thanks for everyone who is attending. Great to talk with you today, and I will tell you a little bit about our experience over the past few months in implementing this solution. Well, we're LaSalle University, and we're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we enroll over 5,000 students, undergraduate and graduate. And we offer, we're a liberal arts institution, and we offer traditional classes, online, hybrid courses, variety of different programs, as many institutions do. We have a number of applications that we support in IT, including our student information system, which is Banner. We just upgraded to Banner 9, which is the latest version. And we have a variety of other different applications, like our learning management system, which is Canvas. And we use Microsoft Office 365 for our email and for our work applications like Word, Excel. So we have pretty standard systems. But as you can imagine, these systems were implemented over time. Just like our telephone system, which we transitioned from the traditional phone system to voice over IP several years ago, these systems grew up independently. And over time, they all have their own logins, their own authentications. And while we try to keep them similar, we really didn't have a single solution that would tie them all together. So you can imagine the challenges that we faced in IT in supporting each of these applications that we have on campus separately, especially from the IT support perspective, in terms of the amount of support calls we would get, and each support call would be unique to the system. It's also difficult for our end users. Our end users are students and faculty and employees, and also trying to make the user experience as efficient as possible for them was our goal. It all started with onboarding, just getting students, faculty, and staff as new employees coming into the university, where there would be significant delays, data entry issues, accuracy on data entry issues, timing. So people would be coming and not to the university and starting their engagement here without the proper account or credentials or access to systems that they needed to do their job or complete their degree. So we really faced a problem which put a lot of work on the IT department. There are many applications that we had to maintain on a daily basis, and every app had a separate login screen. And users, speaking of the user experience, had to remember multiple passwords. And we had to manage multiple passwords on the back end, which was a lot of work for IT. So how do we tie together all these critical and major systems into one easy to access authentication solution? We looked at many different solutions to get to where we are today. But the second biggest problem was that users were forgetting their application, their passwords, and that generated thousands of calls to the help desk. You can imagine the number of interactions that we've had just to change passwords, and I'm sure many of your institutions also experience similar issues in that our number one IT stat for the help desk is always change password or authentication problems. And it can be a variety of different issues that causes them, but certainly authentication was always an issue, and it could be just because they forgot the password, or they know the password for the learning management system, but forgot it for our student information system. So it was a lot of chaos and a lot to manage for us as decision making came up in terms of, well, which system do we work on first to make that as user-friendly as possible. And no matter what we did to the systems, no matter what documentation or training that we put out there for our end users, it really wasn't as good as forgetting all of that information and having one way to authenticate. So big strain on our help desk and also our back-end support. The other issue was students that were coming in that are new students and not having their credentials so they could begin their courses. And I'm talking about some of these specialized programs like online learning and the hybrid classes and adult learning that were outside of our traditional full-time undergraduate students. Sometimes these students were treated a little bit differently in the system. We have, and our system consisted of, to create accounts, consisted of code that was written about 20 years ago by somebody that had left a long time ago. And so we didn't have the institutional knowledge to modify and update that script. And not too many folks in IT were ready to kind of jump in and try to modify because people were afraid they would break it. And then we would have a bigger problem. So it was a complex script that was many lines of code that had been altered over many years. And so really was not able to be supported, and it was legacy code written on old systems, and we did our best to upgrade the systems to run the code. So one problem led to another as far as our ability to modify the way we created accounts. The custom code, although it provided some automation in creating accounts, it was not a total solution. For instance, we couldn't easily change passwords. People had to come to our campus to change their password because it was tied in with a local network campus. So they really couldn't change it for many systems at home, for example, or if they were traveling abroad. So they had to be very vigilant about when passwords changed. And we would send out a notification well in advance, and inevitably people wouldn't get to change their password, and then they would be caught off campus or abroad without being able to access their resources. So that was also another limiter in terms of people being able to complete their degree or do their work on campus. It also, again, generated significant amount of help desk and IT support requests. So we really had a lack of automation and the ability for the end user to control their own accounts and credentials. Again, I mentioned the multiple login screens that were all over campus. Although we had a portal, every time you clicked on a different resource, you would get a different interface and a different way to authenticate yourself into that resource. So we really started to search for a solution that could ease a usable solution for our end users and ease the support that was required from IT, especially during our high times of fall and spring semester, and then also even now at the summer as some of our programs have ramped up there was a lot of support required over the summer. We looked at a number of single sign-on solutions that are available in the market. Needless to say, many of those are very expensive and many are complex, possibly over-complex for our environments. So one thing is that we were able to talk with Quick Launch, who approached us with an identity and access management solution. And you know, they talked to us not in terms of technical in the beginning. It was really in terms of transforming the user experience. And that is so upfront for us in the IT department as we work with all the different divisions around campus. We also don't want to talk about strictly, you know, the technology part of what people expect, because a lot of times we'll be approached and say, hey, well, I have this technology problem, but it's not that. It's a workflow problem. It's a user interaction problem. And we really like to approach our problems from that direction instead of trying to prescribe the technology first. And that's what Quick Launch did with us with our identity and access management solution. You know, it was really about how do we make the user experience better? How do we ease the load on the IT department so we can focus on other projects? So they provided us with a one-stop login experience. And the best part is that we would be able to remember, users would be able to remember one password and one username for all applications across the university. And so everybody was very happy with the prospect of that, especially our IT help desk, who, you know, our number one statistic was changing passwords and authentication problems. But basically, the Quick Launch solution really was we were able to turn the way that we were supporting authentication and account creation toward the user, so they had much more control and it made more sense to them. And we were able to create accounts before users got on campus. So when they arrived, they were ready to work on the systems. We were able to provision users, you know, automatically instead of manually creating them, where we had a banner to Active Directory authentication process. And it consumed a lot of time for everybody across IT. The good thing about Quick Launch is that this is all now automated. And the other rising issue with us, and I'm sure with many of your institutions, was IT security. IT security is a big concern, especially for the users of our systems, such as our student information systems, where some of the most sensitive information about our end users is contained. And we have people who work in these systems that are allowed to authenticate into them, and we really needed a solution for protecting those accounts. We are all experiencing, I'm sure, phishing attacks, and they've really been increasing, among other threats, cybersecurity threats that continue to rise in our institutions, and taking protections against these threats is critically important and part of the Quick Launch solution. So one thing we've been able to immediately identify and launch for our critical users was multi-factor authentication. And we have started with a program where we've given them tokens so they can authenticate with their regular credentials and use the tokens for an extra layer of protection. This has grown into a much bigger project, and as we socialize the idea of multi-factor authentication across the entire university, we will be rolling it out for every student, staff, and faculty member across our campus. I think that you know, this helps kind of introducing it with our core group of users that touch our most important and sensitive information on campus. And we didn't have the capability to do that before. It's much easier with Quick Launch at this time. The great thing about Quick Launch also is that it's intuitive, it's secure, it's usable and efficient, and it's all wrapped up into one package. You know, it's really, I'm looking at my help desk stats now, and I see how password management has dropped down to number 2, so, and it continues to decrease. And as people get more used to being able to manage their own, account and their own password, now they will have the ability to change their password and manage their account. We can also provision accounts that are role specific. Instead of assigning roles to students, faculty, and staff after the account's been created manually, they're now automatically assigned based on who they are and in the system. So the great thing about Quick Launch was they sat and worked with us on the user experience, but also worked through each one of these roles and how they would interact as people started their experience with our university. And it is all about the experience, how they would be easily able to access the resources that they would need, and not just one time, but all the time. So, it's been a success. We're very happy we did that. I think the other part of this is there's two major things for me, is that they really helped us obtain a enterprise single sign-on solution at a reasonable price that we could afford as an institution. And they took the time to work with us to really understand our environment. We're all different as institutions, but we're all kind of the same too, especially we use the same type of technologies. But they really took the time to get to know our institution, our users, and our IT department, and how that whole dynamic works, so we could improve the bigger picture of how we provide identity and access management. So it's been a very good experience. We're very happy we did it, and we are looking forward to continued successes and unlocking other features from Quick Launch in the future. That's about it. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Carl. We're delighted to understand your success story and to understand that we could add value. I'll pass it on to Nate from here to demonstrate the capabilities of the platform over a product demo.
Thank you, Anu. Thanks, Carl, for sharing your input and also sharing the wonderful experience that you've been having with Quick Launch. And I will take it over from here. I will run the people on the audience for a quick walkthrough of our product. A little bit of myself before we start off. I've been with Quick Launch for 3 years now, and I've had the pleasure of working with more than 200 institutions implementing Quick Launch. So that's been quite a good positive story for Quick Launch as an organization and as a product that we've grown over the ages. All right, this would be a first page. So let me give you a two-step product demo. The first step of the product would be setting up the product itself in terms of the admin end. How would you set the product up for you? And then we will show you how the front end looks. That is from the student's perspective. So let's start off with setting up your account. You go to our page. You fill in our basic details. I have Chad Hoskins. He was supposed to attend the webinar, and last minute changes prompted him to not. Or maybe we do have Chad. Chad, if you're there, hi from Nate. And I've just added in my basic details with Chad. I put in his number. I'm using my number here just for a purpose. And I'm waiting for the OTP as we speak. And I have got my OTP. It's 3442. Wonderful. Once I hit on the OTP, my system starts setting up everything on the background and then asks me again to put my password. All right, looks like my fat fingers are up to no help. Let me put that in again. All right. And there we go. I hit on login and the page is setting up everything for me in terms of directing how I need to set up my account. Now we see the first page. This is our admin page. I do have a pre-set up login page so that I don't waste time with you people on the call. Let me quickly go in there, show you the details that I need to input. and I go to add users. The first step anywhere would be to first configure my AD. I click on configure my AD. 90% of the institutions I worked have their database set up already on an AD. Most of them do have some of their data set up on Excel manually. Now let's not get there. That would be a crude method of storing data. And I see an option called add new directory. I have all the set of details that I need to put in here. These are generic IT details. Most of your IT teams would have at the fingertips. There we go. I have around 9 to 10 fields to set up to update, and I click on connect. And there we go, bam. In real time, I see my connection being established with my AD, and I do see that on my screen as well. I move on. As soon as I connect my AD, I'm set with my data, I move on, configure and add my apps. Let's go to the next step. And before the call, I did go through most of the college. I did some background research. 99% of all the institutions have either Zanzibar, Banner as their SIS. Let me take in Banner since we're talking about that. I add in Banner, and most of your websites also have more than an SIS. Your students do use an LMS. So let's look at a Canvas as well, post Zanzibar. I'm going to put Canvas. Let's try a Moodle as well. Let's add in a Moodle that's most widely used LMS systems that most of the colleges and universities use. I'm done with adding my apps. And here's the beauty of it. Here's the beauty of it. I've added the apps. I configure them right away in terms of accessing them. It's just a click away. I want to configure my apps. I click on them, put in the authentication method. Most of them run on SAML or CAS. That's the options we have depending on the kind of app that you want. Or if you do have a custom script, you can do that as well. And done. I click on save, and my apps are ready to rock and roll. And I then move on to branding, folks, and keep a watch on the time. We're going to finish the setup in just under 7 minutes. We're 3 minutes down the line. I come to branding. Now, what does branding do for me? I want my college or university to showcase the product I use. I want my name. So you put in a white label page here. I see Sierra College, which we just wanted to showcase. So I'm going to upload an image, replace that with your college image or a video for that matter, or a transient image. That is your preference, ladies and gentlemen. This eliminates the use for you to hire a third-party service provider just to design your landing page. That's completely eliminated. So every season, every season the students join in, you could change your web page. And you have an update, you could put that. You want to change your colors, you could go ahead and do that based on your college or university's theme. And if you want to play around with the font, you could do that as well. We've got the whole 9 yards covered. You want to change the labels. Now, here's the best part. A few of the colleges and universities have their own set of usernames, like say a Kerberos ID. So say you have a Charger ID. You could change the label to that. The whole lot of customizations are perfectly available on the screen. If you do have a disclaimer that you want to put in, just click on the footer there, and you could go on to the screen and put in your text. And that's how simple you get to do this. And in terms of branding, you've just seen your pre-login screen. That's for the front-end user. You have a couple of free styles that you get to choose as well, which in terms of your user experience, you could go ahead and use the one that you feel is relevant. Let's move on and see a post-login screen as well. This would be what the student or the staff member would see once they log in. And here as well, we have the same set of tools. You could upload your logos. You could change the header and footer, and just cosmetically change the page as much as you want, and as long as it satisfies your theme. And this is an exercise that would take some time depending on your preference. Let's move on to the security bit so that I finish the setup as promised on 7 minutes. Now is where everything ties up, people. Everything ties up on this single page because here's where I take care of my yin and yang. Here's where I put food. So I will configure my MFA right here on this page. I'm going to put in a set of rules that enables the college or the university to define their security standards. Now, when I say security standards, do you want your users to answer a set of security questions every time they log in? If so, what are the number of questions? And how many would be optional? And how many of those questions do we have to mandatorily answer? Now, this is purely based on the kind of security setup you would require. So I will leave this to your best decision. And in case you do want your own set of questions to be added, you do have that option as well. But we do have an exhaustive list of predetermined questions you could make use of, just in case you feel there's a question that is not in the list. You can add your own custom question and put it on the list. Use it at your convenience. So we've defined the kind of automated questions we want. We'll move on to an email verification and see what are the kind of options that I would need to enable. I have the option of enabling a primary email. I'm sure you collect this as the first point of contact that you have a student is collection of their email or their phone number. These are two indicators of data that are which preeminently should be available to your IT team. And once I enable my primary email, you could probably enable your secondary email as well. I'm sure you folks provide a new email ID to your students once they join and onboard onto the university or the college. So I would enable the secondary email just in case that happens. I click on save and then I move on to a phone. Who doesn't have a phone number these days, people? So just to be on the safer side, I enable the phone verification as well, just in case my email ID doesn't work. I wouldn't want my student or a staff to be held up. So I do put an email as well as a phone and OTP option as well. There are two ways of sending an OTP via the phone. One would be an SMS, one would be an SMS via email. That's pretty much about the phone number. Pretty simple, as much as you see it on the screen. Almost takes 30 seconds to do that. I click on save and my phone verification is done as well. In case your students have multiple phone numbers, you can have a secondary number as well, but I'd stick to the first one and have a single point of contact. Moving on, folks, ladies and gentlemen, this is the crux of our product. With the whole world moving towards the passwordless space, we do have YubiKey as one of the authentication methods. What this basically does is a Touch ID verification. This could serve as an extra layer of security for your staff members, or say probably a contract worker who's in your organization for probably just a couple of months, or say on a 6-month contract, and need to go through an additional set of verification or a security layer. You could add in a YubiKey. All this does is a Touch ID verification, increasing your security standards by the word go. And I click on launch. I see 100%, and I do have one more policy that I need to set. Now let's talk a bit about policies, because this determines the way that you want to set your authentication methods. Now, when I say authentication methods, we have two kinds of groups here, two kinds of front-end users. One would be your student and one would be your staff. How would you want your staff to log in? Maybe your staff requires much more higher level of authentication because they have direct and closer access to your data. And this data is not just of your staff and student, but the entire ecosystem. So probably you want to make a certain email or a phone validation as mandatory for your staff, but whereas for your student, you wouldn't want a phone or a email validation, and just a set of security questions would work. So that's again a permutation and combination that you would be able to do based on your preference. And then I do have another option in case you have a contract worker and want to add in a new policy. That's at your disposal again. I can create as much policies as I need in terms of contract workers, students, staff. If there's another person that you need admin rights, again, all this can be done based on your convenience and based on your preference. And then I will go on to the last bit of my setup, which will end my setup and give rise to the product. So I go into my first-time user. If you think back to what Anu and Carl were speaking, what the first-time user product does for you is eliminates any use of a password breach. How does that happen? I'm sure most of the colleges or universities at the moment send in emails with default passwords or give away hard copies of their username and password, but Quick Launch eliminates all of that breach, because anything that travels has a tendency to be broken into via email, text, via a hard copy. Anything can be hacked in and phished in these days. So what Quick Launch does is send out an email to the first-time users, enabling them to set up their own passwords. So this eliminates the need for your IT team to be on calls 24/7, just resetting passwords. So the whole point of a password reset request has gone out of the door. And what you've essentially done is automated the whole process, which in turn ends up with you saving thousands of dollars again if you look at the bigger picture, and your IT resources are now much better utilized than just resetting passwords as a major chunk of their day-to-day tasks. I have enabled these methods now, and I click on Launch. And as promised, ladies and gentlemen, we finished the setup in under 7 minutes. Barely took me around 5.5 minutes now. Let's click on Launch and see what happens. Meanwhile, if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any moment. And you do have a question box on your screen as well, where you can go ahead and type in a question just in case you wouldn't want to shout that out on the mic. All right, there we go. My account has been set up. I just set up a Sierra College as my SSO. I'm done. Let's go to a first-time user, Shreya. So I show you the entire journey from what happens. So I'm just going to put in a student. I've already saved this as part of my data. I'm going to put my own name and my email as Nate_Diaz@quicklaunchssr.com. Put in my number. I select myself as a student. I say yes. I'm not a staff. So this screen, people, would be on the back end. This is your back end screen where you first get your set of data. Maybe your student responds via email, and you get this data, right? And you add this into your SIS, goes into your AD. I have my account set up. Let's see what happens, right? And as I enter my details, I am setting that up. Let me take a pause right there and see if I have any questions from the crowd so far in terms of any screens that have been gone so far. Any questions? All right, I see an incoming question from Steven Marcello. I'm not entirely sure which university this individual is from. And the question is, what is the implementation cycle and and how long does it take to finish the setup? Okay, Stephen, you just saw the setup barely takes around 5 to 7 minutes and under that, but the whole implementation in itself takes less than an hour. And we've had a successful track record of implementing our solution with Pierpont University. If you Google them out within 2 hours, that's never been heard of in the industry. All right, I'm going to take a pause on the questioning now and move on with the demo again. All right, I see that I created a new student in there. My AD shows that it's successfully gone in. So if you notice, it says Sierra2, that's my username. And I send that, and I just put that on an email, put in a link, send it to Sierra2, that's your student. So as a first step, your student puts in their username, and there are two methods again. So I had enabled both an SMS verification as well as an email. So we have both the options here, and I select SMS now. Let's wait for an OTP, see if that turns out. And all right, there we go. I got the OTP. I'm going to enter that in. Once I enter my OTP, I should be able to view my screen. Taking one moment here. Awesome, awesome. I hope you guys see the difference here. As soon as I authenticated myself using my phone, the system, the AI engine that we've developed already kicks in and prompts me to create my own password. So if you look at the difference here between Quick Launch and other firms doing this, we don't have a password going out to any of your students or staff. They themselves are going to set that up at their convenience and at their preference. So there you go, your user's created. Now all you do is log in with your set password, which you did that. So let's log in and see what happens with the front end once you provide the username and password is set up by the user. All right, so I've set up my password. So I'm logging in as a student. And once I log in, I want you guys to focus on here what happens on the screen because I've set my password here. There you go. So I added in all these apps, if you remember, on the branding and apps page. But again, my system pumps me in. Why is it asking me to sign in again? Let me try that. I've entered my password, and I sign in again, and there you go. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is my AI engine working in the background, telling me, hey, boss, you haven't set up your security questions, so it's forcing me to set up my security protocol as a user and refuses to allow me to use any of the apps until I've completed my security setup. And how long did my security setup take? Less than 20 seconds. So once I do that, I put in my email address in my phone, which is already in there, and I click on back to my applications. Let's see what happens. I click on yes, I want to continue. Wonderful. Now here we go. All my apps in the place, my AI engine's done the job for me. I won't have to worry about anything. Most of my widely used apps are available on this page. Now here's the biggest difference in terms of this page. There could be instances where your student could also be a staff member. So how do you portray that? You put that in terms of creating a division on the first page. If you could go to the first page where I saved this person as a student, you do see an option as group staff as well. Now this would be the most important for you in terms of sourcing the data to classify and differentiate this person as either a student or a staff. So once that invite goes out to that person to set up the account, the apps are configured accordingly. And I am going to end it right here because the whole user journey and the setup for me has taken less than 10 minutes. And if anything is missing, or in terms of any missing links or any questions that you find relevant in this case, you could go ahead and shout them out, or you could also type them in on the box which appears on your screen. All right, I do see as soon as I ask people to question me, I see a whole lot of questions coming my way. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds. I have 3 to 4 questions already on my way. All right, I do have a first question. Do we support account deprovisioning? Absolutely. Quick Launch comes with an intuitive configuration administration that allows all admins to deprovision their workflow basis their requirement. In all possibility, yes, we support deleting the accounts, moving them to disabled OUs, removing network access, and all the bells and whistles that comes with deprovisioning. I have another question coming in. How do we generate UPN with Quick Launch? Let me expand that for you. By UPN, Nathan means user principal name. So we have another question from Nathan De Cruz who says, how do we generate user principal name with Quick Launch? All right, Nathan, for your information, Quick Launch comes up with, like I said previously as well, it has an intuitive configuration that allows all admins to define the business logic for the specific UPN generation. And we also come with the ability to write back UPN to banner if required. I hope that answers your question, Nathan. And I have another question now. Before I move on to the next question, I'll give it a pause of 10 or 15 seconds in case anyone wants to shout out another one. Okay, for the last set of questions coming in from the audience this afternoon, I have another question where I guess this is very simple and answers for everyone, I guess. The question is, how do we connect banner with your Active Directory? And that question comes in from Adam Nash. Mr. Nash, I hope your name, I hope that's right. I'm reading it right. How do you connect your AD to banner or the other way around? So it's simple. We use a JDBC protocol. We use a JDBC protocol to connect your banner with AD, your Active Directory. I'll move on to the next couple of questions, and I'm going to end the questioning round and let Anu close the call for me. I'm just going to give another 10 seconds. All right, last question for the afternoon. What reports are available from Carol Coupe? Carol, we have an in-depth reporting engine that admins can make use of. You can run reports both at a global and a connector level as well. We provide detailed logs on successful versus failed provisioning events, along with detailed reasons on the failures. For example, a password reset. How many times has a particular user tried to successfully reset their password? And if it is failing, why is the reason that it failed? So you get the whole ecosystem of reporting. We go in directly to the source, so you've got the whole bells and whistles going for you in terms of reporting. We have in-depth reports that satisfies your performance. All right, I am going to kill the question round now and pass it on to Anu to close the webinar and a few notes again.
Thank you so much, Nate. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this session. Thanks a lot, Carl, for giving your inputs once again. I really appreciate your time. What I'll do as a next step is that you'll receive an email with this presentation, and we'd also request you to schedule a one-on-one with us for any question that is still left unanswered. For all the questions that we've answered, we'll make sure that this email that you'll get will have that answer documented so that you have it with you in your email. What we'll also do is that we'll send you a link to start your free trial, using which, with a click of a button, you'll have your tenant created already. And what that will do is that we'll make sure that it's branded before we jump on to the one-on-one. So what I'll do is that we'll send out all this information over an email. We also have some special discounts for the attendees of this webinar. We're passing on up to 30% on our cost for the webinar attendees. We'll mention that as a note on the email, and we'll take it from there. So thank you so much, everyone, for being part of it, and looking forward to add value to your system very soon.